Now let's revisit Dennis and his daughter Sally and their options counselor Sofia. At the end of Module 5, Sofia had learned about the routines that were important to both Dennis and his daughter. Although Sofia did not use a flip chart at that first meeting, she used her notes to construct a routines chart, which we previewed in Module 5. Early in her first meeting with Dennis and his daughter Sally, Sofia realized that a key family member, Dennis's daughter who lived out of state, was missing. At Sofia's urging, Sally set up another meeting the next time her sister was in town. Sofia also encouraged Sally to think about who could support her. She mentioned her daughter Keisha and her father's friend Fred. At the next planning meeting, Dennis, both his daughters, granddaughter, and Fred were present. This is where most of the planning took place. At this stage in the planning process, it was still important for Sofia to refrain from stepping in with solutions. By looking at Dennis's strengths, such as what was working, the positive aspects of family relationships, and finances, the family team could begin to identify opportunities to address what was not working and identify possible options that would work for them. Sofia shared Dennis's daily routines chart that had come out of their first meeting. Dennis, his other daughter, and friend each added important information about his routines, and Sofia kept checking in with Dennis to see if he agreed. This was important modeling for the family, and by the end of the meeting, they were talking with Dennis rather than about him. Sofia then led the group through the Shaping Outcomes tool. Although the family initially identified many goals, Sofia helped them narrow their focus on two specific outcomes that were central to Dennis's and Sally's well-being and were acceptable goals for the rest of the family and Fred. The first goal was that Dennis maintain routines that were important to him in his home as long as possible. The second was that Sally have a balance between supporting her father, herself, and her other family and work responsibilities. Once they settled on these goals, Sofia helped them identify why specific routines were important to Dennis and what the challenges were for Sally. With this further specificity, the plan began to emerge. Note that reading the paper is part of Dennis's routine and that he really needs this to have a good start to the day. Eating hot lunch is important to him. And they realized that Sally and Dennis had their best time over lunch and that Sally wasn't getting this. Talking with Lola, watching the news are also important evening routines. Dennis increasingly needs assistance with housekeeping, laundry, grocery shopping, and meal preparation. And these chores were taking time away from Sally's personal time with Dennis. As they talked, it became apparent that the two sisters were both feeling burdened and resentful. Again, Sally really enjoyed relaxing and socializing with her father, but she had lost that aspect of their relationship due to the many tasks that she had taken on. She resented the time Lola had on the phone with Dennis just being able to talk about enjoyable things. On the other hand, Lola wanted to be more involved and felt in the dark. She knew Dennis had memory problems, but she had felt excluded from Dennis's care and the decision-making Sally was doing. Part of balancing Sally's life became giving up some of the caregiving to Lola, identifying what Lola could do from long distance, as well as how she and Sally could coordinate support when Lola was in town. In this way, the group identified priorities needed for supporting Dennis and both of his daughters. Dennis's family identified goals they could agree to and generated several ideas for achieving them, all the beginning of a plan. The next step was to figure out what was doable, who would do what, when, and how. Although several elements of the plan were informed by the options counselor, it is important to emphasize that most of the plan emerged from Dennis and his families. As a family identified a need they could not address, or when they had a solution that could be augmented by formal services, Then Sofia was able to suggest specific community resources that could meet that need. As Sofia had told them at their first meeting, she was an expert on community services. Some of the resources Sofia suggested are included in the resource directory for this module. Through this planning, they also clarified roles and risks, clarified expectations, needs, and schedules, and they negotiated agreements for services and payment for services. Let's hear how Sofia, Sally, and Dennis describe the outcome of this second meeting, beginning with Sofia.
We came up with a straightforward plan with Dennis's family, and it is something that is going to take care of the specific goals that they have and of all their needs. To begin with, we are going to do something that will really help individualize a plan. For example, we get more people that are involved in supporting Dennis. They have chosen to have a home care worker, and they have chosen this person to be somebody who will be involved in the things that Dennis mostly enjoys, playing cards, talking about sports, taking some walks and joking, having a good sense of humor. When this home care worker comes home, we will have a photograph of her on the refrigerator so that Dennis has more ease recognizing who this person might be. We have decided to get Dennis's social network involved more, and Sally's daughter has agreed to come once a week to have lunch, and she talks to Fred, and they even were able to find out that at the community center there's transportation available. So now we will zap that problem as well, and Dennis will have transportation to the community center.
And here is Sally's view of the aftermath of that meeting.
This has turned out differently than I expected. I was really overwhelmed with Dad's care, and I knew it was just going to get worse. This isn't what I expected to be doing at this time in my life. My grandchildren are such a joy. They're just beginning to get in activities, and I've had to miss a lot of time with them caring for my dad. I was so focused on getting through the day and the weeks that I couldn't see another way of doing things except getting Dad into a home. That made me feel really guilty. I admit I was also irritated with Lola because she just didn't understand. Dad thinks she walks on water. Lola told me that Dad talks with her about me that way. I didn't realize that. She also reminded me that I hadn't kept in touch with her about Dad. Now, we've both been so involved with our families and work that we just got out of the habit of talking to each other. Having the OC there to help us work through this has really been helpful. We seem to be talking about Dad and what's going on a little better, you know. I appreciate the information the OC provided. God, I had no idea there were so many things that might help. I don't think some of it's going to work for us, but some of it's really going to make a difference. For instance, someone can come and do some of the housework and the laundry and you know, Dad's okay, but sometimes he forgets and, you know, he's never really wanted anybody but family in the house. But she really helped us think that through. It's also nice to have her there to help us figure out, you know, who's going to do what. And, you know, I didn't realize that just having the ideas was just a starting point. But then Lola and I figured out that what we needed to do, we needed to support Dad and each other. I mean, a lot of that meant getting other people involved and getting them to do their part. I mean, it doesn't always work, but it works most of the time. God, I have more backup support now, and I know what to do now if something falls through. I think this is going to work.
And finally, here's how Dennis experienced it.
It was nice having Sally and Lola visit me. That other person was pretty nice too. Asking me what I thought, what I wanted. I I didn't always know what they were talking about. I knew it was about me, but that didn't make me mad. Used to be I could make anything work. I get upset when I can't do that anymore. I like my house and my neighborhood. It is comfortable, and I don't forget as much as when I'm here. This is where I live with Rosa. I told them the things I want now are to keep my routines, spend time with my daughters, play cards, and spend time with my golfing friends. I also want that damn paper in the morning.
In summary, involving Dennis and focusing on routines that were important to him kept the discussion person-centered. Acknowledging Sally's needs also helped assure Sally that things would change even as they continued to support Dennis at home. The facilitated discussion with the options counselor helped the family have a dialogue about solutions that informed all of them. For example, Sally learned about Lola's concerns, her desire to participate more in her father's care, and her frustration in feeling left out. Sally realized that she'd become more focused on tasks and she was missing pleasurable time with Dennis. This had made her resentful, irritated, and overwhelmed. Here are some examples of the commitments the family made to achieve the goals of supporting Dennis's routines and balancing Sally's responsibilities. Getting home-delivered meals was discussed but then rejected because Dennis wasn't enthusiastic about them, and Sally realized that she really enjoyed having lunch with her father if she could focus on socializing. Making lunches for Dennis was part of her routine because she typically made the family meals for the week on the weekend. It was easy for her to include a portion for Dennis. Dennis thought he would try another microwave on days that Sally or Keisha or the home care worker weren't there. Sally and Dennis decided they would try this option, and if it didn't work, would consider delivered meals in the future. We will highlight long-range planning more in Modules 7 and 8. However, by focusing on what was important to Dennis, as well as what was important for keeping him as independent and safe as possible, this process for planning will continue to serve Dennis and his family very well.